Yeah, hey folks, this is Martin from the photoacademy.eu, and on this video I show you a little bit about a photo walk. Here I have images from different places with different settings of my camera or different lenses I choose, and I like to show you with all these images in the next few minutes what you can do and how you are able to get a special image by changing things on place if you're out on the photo walk. Yet first you have two different views you can choose with your camera. It's the landscape or the portrait view, and here in the first image we have the portrait view. All of the images are landscapes, but I changed my view of the camera a little bit all the time to get some different impressions to the image. Yeah, you see this first in the portrait view, and the next you have a landscape view, and it's already changing a little bit the whole area. You can see here you have a much more wider view of the landscape, and here you have a higher view. You get a little bit more of the sky and the water in the front. And these are two kinds you can change the impression to an image by changing the view of the camera, if it's portrait or landscape. But for me, I had also a little bit of the assignment on these walks we've done for the Photo Academy up in the Swedish Lapland. And this assignment is, or was, to shoot less like you do with a film camera. Yeah, and especially if you do HDR or panorama shots, for sure you have a lot more images for the final one image you get after the post. But yeah, it's also get the less shots that are possible. And for this overview here, for me it's much better to have a panorama. Here if you're other kind, I changed the perspective a little bit from the left hand side to the right hand side, so the small hill is changing the point inside of the image. Here it's more centered, and here it's more to the right hand side. Yeah, but as I said, for the whole scene with all the clouds and the whole dramatic sky and the mirroring effect and the water, for me it's better to get in a panorama sometimes, like I will show you in the next. And for these images, here we have a thunderstorm coming up, and this is a wide angle shot, so you can change your image by changing lenses. And this is a wide angle shot, and this is a telephoto shot from the same scene. I change it back. This is the wide angle with all the dramatic sky, the clouds, and a little bit of the rain over the horizon line. And here it's directly inside of the rain going on over the horizon line. Yeah, and as I said before, I love shooting panorama on these places. There's so much going on, so much dramatic, and all the clouds and the changing of the light. And I love to shoot, mostly I love to shoot panorama shots. For sure, a panorama like this, I shot 12 images. But in the end it's only one image for me, so these are different images from the same scene, on the same standpoint or the viewpoint I had. And I will go back for this panorama scene here for the telephoto, the long telephoto lens, 500mm, or something with the 60mm fisheye. And for me it's better to have this panorama. You have everything, you have straightened lines, like you can see here on the left. This is straightened, and if we go back to the fisheye, you can see it's a very hard distortion in the image. Yeah, and some other images will also show you what happened if you change your viewpoint or your perspective. It's like the first series with the small hill on the right hand side, but it's another day, another mood, different light, much more dramatic sky. And here I changed the perspective a little bit all the time by shooting, and as well as I changed the landscape or portrait. Especially for this I have much more of the sky in this image, in the photograph, and a more centered image from the same scene. It's only a few seconds between them. Yeah, or with the portrait, so a landscape portrait. Yeah, or as I said before, I love shooting panorama on these places. There's so much going on all over the scene, and for me it's much more for the viewer's eye if you have one image stitched of 12 or something like that images. So I go back from the landscape to the portrait view or the whole scene with the panorama view. And another scene. Here I have a portrait view of the landscape with a little bit of the foreground on the right hand side. I loved shooting, especially for the foreground, much more less of the foreground and much more from the background. It's a special mood for me. So you have a different perspective if you're looking on this image and you have a little bit in the foreground from something. And here I got a little bit further into the scene without the foreground, but it's also a little bit of the foreground but further away. And the same scene in the panorama, back on the same point as I stand for the one image I showed at first from the whole scene here. It's a very big panorama, it's maybe 20-24 images from the, I think it's a 180 degrees shot of the whole scene. Yeah, here we are on top of one mountain up in the Swedish Lapland. Down in the valley you see Abisko with the Abisko Nature Reserve on the right hand side going into the Kungsleden. but this is an overview of the Tornetresk, and this is also a wide-angle shot. And now I show you a telephoto shot of one special part. This two mountains called Lappporten, and this is a symbol from the Abisko and the nature reserve, and it's very known symbol for the Swedish Lapland. And back what I love, a panorama shot from the whole scene. You have the Tornetresk on the left hand side and the Lappporten with the Abisko Nature Reserve and the Kungsleden on the right hand side and a little bit in the center. So you can capture the whole scene of something, especially if you have a standpoint high up on the mountain. You can capture the whole scene with the panorama shot, and I love those kinds of shots and stitch it at home with my program. Yeah, another example for what happened if you change your lens on the camera. Here you have again a wide-angle shot with a nice part of the scene, or another kind of telephoto shot with a small area of the scene. And if you go back, somewhere over here you have the telephoto. Both are very nice to me. I love this telephoto shot as well. But in the end I shot the whole area with the panorama. For sure the sky is not so nice. It's very cloudy on this day, but I like the gray, the half part of the image with the gray tones, and then the little bit more of the color tones in the other half of the image. And here you have the little point from the telephoto shot. Go back and back to the panorama. You can see how it's changing the whole scene for the viewer's eye if you change a lens or the whole kind of shooting. And here we are again up on the mountain. I'm inside of the clouds for this area, and it's post-imaged. On the back side of my camera I wasn't able to see much of these rocks here in the mist, so I changed the contrast a little bit. I love the mood with all the mist and fog going around, but I like to have a little bit more of the rocks in this image, so it's a little bit less of the gray tones and a little bit more of the foreground to the midground. And another view from another standpoint, same place, same area, but it's not enough for me. Or both images, this one and this one, is taken with the wide angle 60mm, but it's not enough for me for the whole mood and all the fog and mist going around and the special color tone of the stones and the rocks, the water. It's a very special water. It's the glacier water from the sea. It's called, or the small lake is called Trollsjön, up close to the borderline of Norway. It's a very crystal clear water, 36-meter clear water with a special tone from the glaciers, from the other mountains all around. So again, I took my camera up in the portrait view and shot a panorama of 12 or 14 images and stitched them together with the program. And here you can see much more of the whole scene, the mist, the landscape, the whole colors and gray tones you have. And here we are in another place. It's called Storforsen. It's one of the highest wild river in Sweden. It's very close to the town Piteå, up in the north of Sweden. It's a little bit south of the polar circle. And I shot different images from the whole river. It's a very wild river. Changes the height of about 70 meters. So I think it's not easy to get a boat inside of this, but some will do. I love shooting. And for me it's not enough to have only images of one part of this. It's not enough to give the viewer's eye overview of all that what's going on there. So again, back to the panorama shot, you have the whole area in one image, and for me it's the best kind of shooting if you will give the viewer's eye a very special overview of a whole scene, of the whole landscape. You have much less distortion. For sure you can capture the scene with the 10mm, 60mm, very wide angle, but especially if you have straight lines inside of a scene like trees or other stuff, it's a little bit confusion if you have a very hard distortion from the wide angle lens. So I love shooting with the 35 or 50mm lens in the landscape mode and get a whole panorama of the scene with all straight lines. It's much better for me, or maybe it's also much better for the viewer's eye if everything that should be straight are straight. Yeah, this is it for this video. I hope you got something for your next walk in a landscape with dramatic things going on. And thanks for watching. We'll see you the next time. Goodbye.